Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Confidence and Coins pre-launch event part 1. I'm going to be your host and speaker, which is Sherna Squire, for anyone who does not know me. It's a real honor and a privilege to actually be here today. And this is the first time that I'm actually doing this launch of Confidence and Coins. So I'm really excited to have you all on this call tonight with me. Just for the purpose of tonight's call and because of the numbers, we're going to actually use the chat box to try and interact. And that's only because, unfortunately, if we open up all the mics, it tends to actually affect the sound. So I hope that will be all right. The whole plan will be, ladies, to actually be doing this live in person. But as it is actually quarantine still, or some elements of quarantine, we're online. So as much as I'd love to be able to touch, hold, and connect with you all, I'm really honored and glad that you could all join me today on this live event online. So as you can only imagine, ladies, as it is in the title, it's all about confidence and about coins. And I'm talking about this in particular because for the last few years, I would say, admittedly, I have been on my own journey of certainly having to hit moments in my own life journey where I've had moments where my own confidence has been knocked. And I certainly have seen the impact on not only my confidence being knocked, but how that can tie in and relate to my coins. And for a long time, I remember just having to really decide that I was going to work on actually rebuilding my confidence. And in turn, what I saw happen was actually my coins also started being rebuilt. And that for me was something that not only have I become passionate about, but I realized that there is so many more women worldwide that I connect with worldwide, day-to-day basis. And these people have the similar story. They have a similar experience of going through a moment in life whereby things were tough. Things were really hard. They went through a breakup. They went through a divorce. They've gone through the loss of a child. They've gone through the loss of a job. They've gone through these things that have led them to be in a place where their own sense of worth, their self-worth, has been knocked. Their own sense of who they are and what purpose they have has been disrupted. And this is where really Confidence and Coins has been birthed, because I realized that I wasn't alone in my own story so many years ago. The more that I actually was able to speak up and connect with others and actually just share some of my own experiences, we all actually had a similar story. And that's where I started really tapping into actually seeing that by sharing sometimes our own story, our own journey, our own pain points, we actually are able to affect greater change, not just with ourselves, but really helping others. So this is where Confidence and Coins was really birthed. And it was really birthed because sometimes these are the two areas that we most struggle with in silence. And I remember getting to a place where I said to myself, if I remain silent for the next 3, 4, 5 years or however long to come, nothing is going to change. Nothing about me or my circumstances is actually going to change. And I don't know if there's anyone on this call who's ever got so sick and tired of saying to themselves, I know something's got to change, but you don't do anything about it. And I just got so sick and tired. You know, you get so sick and tired of being so sick and tired that you don't even talk to yourself about it anymore. You just make do. You just keep going. And unfortunately, so many of us, we just stay in that pattern. We just go and go and go and go. And actually, in the end, we're not happier. We're not feeling more confident. And we certainly see that our money or our income hasn't also changed. And these are two areas that actually sometimes leave us with the lowest sense of self-esteem. And it's hard to talk about that sometimes because on the surface, we look so okay, but actually internally, we are not. And that really, guys, is where Confidence and Coins has been birthed. And it's been birthed partly out of my own experience, but mainly because I said to myself, sometimes we need to actually be able to take a stand to say, do you know what? There are areas in my life that I want to change or that I want to work on. And we need to almost confidently be able to own that. And one of the things that I want to do tonight, because this is actually in 3 parts. So tonight is part 1 of this pre-launch. And unfortunately, because we're not face to face, it would be easier to deliver it as we plan to in an actual room or setting where we can deliver this event in one time or in one take, shall I say. But for the purpose of this first night, we are going to be talking about the place of admitting and becoming honest with ourselves. And I think for anything to change, you've got to walk through that step first. And I love a bit of goal setting. And I don't know if anyone has connected with me on Instagram, but I've been talking about being able to actually slow the car down a little bit. And sometimes before we jump into action, being able to actually get really real with ourselves, where we're at, and actually really start to connect with actually what is it about where I'm at that I'm not so okay about or that I want to see change. Because that is the bit that we tend to skip because it's a pain point. It's a point where we've really got to be real with ourselves. And sometimes that's the bit that is actually too painful to deal with. And I'm going to be sharing my journey tonight with you all. And some of you may know me more recently. Some of you may just have recently actually met me. And some of you may have known me for a lifetime. But there are aspects to our journeys that we all sometimes don't know everything. And we do a very good job, let's say, at almost covering up a lot of the things that we're not too proud of. But today, I am going to be actually sharing a little bit about my journey and the steps that have helped me not only to build and regrow as a person, but in the area of confidence and certainly my coins. And the two are so intrinsically linked. And this was something that I did not realize until I went through my own journey and process of understanding how I feel about myself, whether that's confident or not so confident, actually has an impact on the kind of situation I find myself financially in. And it's taken me a long time, ladies, to actually understand that. And this is part of the mission here, to really help women not just always set a goal to achieve financially. Oh, I want to be financially free. Well, yeah, great. But sometimes people end up financially free and internally still so empty. Internally still not feeling that sense of wholeness, that sense of joy, that sense of real, true completion or clarity about who they are, what they bring to this world outside of their capital. All right. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about, well, one of the first steps, as I always say, is get really real with yourself. And if you're making notes tonight, I want you to write down the first step is get real with yourself. Be able to admit to yourself where you are at. That is the starting point. And today I love props. So guys, I work as a functional family therapist. So I'm forever using props because half the time I'm working with kids and teenagers and mums and dads who sometimes want to be there and sometimes they're just like, oh my God, what has she got in her sack? But I thought today I'm going to use some props because you need to actually be able to get real with yourself. And whilst you're getting real with yourself, it's going to require you to admit some things, okay? Now, the first thing, as you probably will see, is this beautiful mirror. And I won't shake it too much because it will probably rebound the light. But this mirror is key. And it's just symbolic, guys, okay? It's just symbolic of the fact that you need to be able to look yourself in the mirror. And when you look yourself in the mirror, you yourself need to be able to admit to yourself what you see. Because the truth of the matter is, we often don't like to really look at ourselves. And I'm not just talking on the surface, I am talking about that deeper inner look that we all sometimes need to do and take a look at. And that internal look is the pain point sometimes for us. Because there's injuries and things that have happened to us that sometimes we don't want to remember. We don't want to actually have to deal with it because it's so tied to so many other injuries and things that have happened to us in the past that we almost can't face. But what I have found is that through not actually facing it and not actually being able to use a mirror and actually do some soul work, not just on the surface of your face, but actually a little bit deeper within, you will actually find that some of the patterns you have found yourself in, whether that's you finding that some months or years, you seem to be on that good move, things seem to be good, you feel like your life's getting back on track. And then suddenly, there's that one person or that one experience or that one thing that happens that almost derails every single thing you thought you'd overcome and already dealt with and already had buried and made sense of. And this is why I say to people, if you can get to a place where you do a bit more of that reflective work, where you're willing to look a little bit more inwards and in an honest, real and raw way, you actually will find that your confidence will begin to soar faster. And I say that with confidence because the vulnerability of being able to do that is what actually propels people forward faster. Now, I hated it. And I'm going to give you a story now of how I got to a place of having to admit that something had to change. All right. So I'm going to call this this is known as the Tesco bag. The Tesco bag incident. And by the end of this call, ladies, you lot will all know about the Mr. Tesco bag and my Tesco bag incident. But this was what really helped me get to a place of honesty with myself. And many years ago, and I'm in my 30s now, but many years ago in my 20s, mid-20s, I went through, like we all do, we go through a relationship. I experienced a breakup that wasn't too great. And what it was ultimately, because everything has a message and it has a lesson, everything we go through in life. But what happened with this one Tesco bag incident was that at the point of this breakup, a friend brought back this bag, okay, this bag for me. And this was a bag that was given to this friend from one of my exes. So he had sent my stuff back to me in a Tesco bag, ladies and gentlemen. Can you believe that? Well, there's no gentlemen on this call, so it's all ladies. And for me, why this was so significant and why this was one of the markers that really began my journey of having to get real with myself was because when that Tesco bag showed up at my house, automatically, I remember that deep sense of feeling like that was all I was worth to him and to almost the world, was everything of a Tesco bag. That was where my sense of worth was at. I remember seeing that Tesco bag come, and I could not believe that actually this person, this individual, had wrapped my belongings. Everything that I thought I mattered to that individual was wrapped up, tied in a knot in a Tesco bag. Now, ladies, this guy may have just actually picked the first bag that came to his hand and put my stuff in. He may not have intentionally set out to actually, you know, purposefully, I'm going to get a Tesco bag. And you know, ladies, it's not the nice Tesco bags that we have today. You know, the ones that we pay 20p or however much we pay for them today. It was the old school plastic bag, the messy, trashy little thin things that we hated when they get caught up on your foot. It was that bag. And when that bag arrived at my door with my belongings tied in it, just knotted like that, I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, that is all I'm worth. Now, ladies, that person who sent that bag, he didn't say that about me. The friend who carried the bag, he didn't actually say that about me. But my own internal belief system felt like that is all you're worth. Now, that injury and that belief didn't start at that Tesco bag. But because I hadn't used the mirror, ladies, used the mirror, and I hadn't looked inwardly at some of the things that I have definitely gone through earlier on in life. In my 20s, when that incident happened, that Tesco bag incident, it had triggered something from my beginning that I had not worked on and understood for myself. So those thoughts and feelings came right the way rushing back. And my sense of self-worth was again in question. Is that all I'm worth? And I'm sharing this story not because I'm trying to talk about like, oh, this relationship, nothing to do with it. The relationship was fantastic. It was a great teacher. It was a great moment for me to learn about myself. But what that actual incident did was it was a moment where I had to actually decide and admit to myself that my sense of self-esteem and sense of self-worth wasn't where I thought it was. Because nothing should have made me, if I was grounded and solid and confident in who I was, that Tesco bag should have come and went, and there would have been no impact, no effect. But I wasn't okay. For me, the minute I saw that Tesco bag, I unraveled, ladies. And I'm telling you, when I unraveled, I mean, I cried a cry that you would have thought I just got birthed from the womb. Because this wailing that came from me was not the average crying that we might do on a day-to-day basis. It was a wailing that I still remember it today. And there are some cries, if you're a mom or you're an auntie and you know you've got nephews, you've got kids, you know cries, you know the difference. And there are some cries that you cry that come from somewhere that you don't even know where that pain began. And I share this Tesco bag story because so many of us, ladies, our sense of self-worth is sometimes wrapped up in a man, a relationship, a job, all these different things. And the minute those things go, who are we, where are we, and how do we move forward? And this is why I say to you, before you start trying to just jump to goal setting, or before you try jumping just to kind of jumping into action, because guys, we are going to get there. This is a 3-part pre-launch, because we know that, yes, we want practical tips on how to grow our confidence and how to actually grow our coins. Absolutely. But there is a step or two before that. And you need to be able to get to a place where you yourself can admit where you're at. Now, in that moment, guys, in the Tesco bag moment, I remember not only just crying that tears, but there was something in me that said, I cannot go and touch that bag. I could not, I don't know what it was, but I knew that if I touched that bag, that was almost me accepting that actually this is all I'm worth. If I picked it up and claimed it, it was almost me deciding that I believed that that was all I was worth. I could not touch the bag. Till today, ladies, I don't know where that Tesco bag is. I don't know where the belongings are. It couldn't come with me into my home and into my future. And there are so many of us, ladies, who have to make some decisions about what is going to come forward and what needs to be left. Now, I remember crying into my mum's top that day. Lord, I cried. And I cried so much in her top. My mascara had ran straight into the middle of her top. It was a turquoise green top. And I remember my mum had to throw her top away. Now, this is symbolic when you think of it, because the top had to go and the bag couldn't come. There are some things that are going to almost rob you of your sense of self-worth. And there are some things that may almost destroy your sense of who you are. And you almost have to do something when it comes to the second thing, which is make a decision. You need to admit to yourself where you're at, what you're feeling, but you also need to make a decision, guys, because I had a decision to make. Do I believe what my mind was telling me about me and who I was, and all I was in that Tesco bag, and that was my self-worth? Or do I do something different? Now, in the moment, I didn't pick the bag up. In that moment, something just knew I couldn't pick up those belongings. I didn't want to claim it. But ladies, I did not get to doing the self-work straight away. And I think we need to all be kind with ourselves sometimes and just admit that it is tough when you've gone through something that has knocked you left to right and you don't have the same motivation to just jump back on it and start running. You don't have the same drive to just be like, you know what, that happened to me yesterday and I'm good today. No, we're not super women all the time. We're human. And it took me a moment to have to dust myself off and actually admit to myself that I need to work on my self-esteem. I need to work on my sense of self-worth. There are areas to me that I need to work on because what I went through almost robbed me of the sense of who am I? I came out of a situation where I couldn't really be confident in saying, I know who I am. I know where I'm going. I know what I need to do. I couldn't. I was knocked left to right. And I'm sharing this story really just to say that there are so many of us, ladies, who are in similar situations. We may know some women who are going right through it right now. We know some women who've come out the other end, and we may know some who deep down are struggling. They're struggling with their confidence on so many different levels, and they're doing everything externally to almost mask what might be going on internally. And that's why I say to people, the first thing you need to be able to do is really get real with yourself. Admit where you're at. Face you. Because you deep down, we always know where we're at. We always know what areas we're not too comfortable with. We're not too feeling too confident with. And start there. So admit it. Okay? Admit it. Then make a decision. Because I had a decision. When that Tesco bag happened, I had a decision to make. I definitely could have picked that bag up and probably even tried to do something to fix it, do something. But I made the decision that something needs to change with me, because that thought and that belief that all I was worth was almost summarized in that Tesco bag was not the type of mindset or belief system I wanted to continue to have. So I knew there's an area within myself that I need to work on. Why? Because something about that thinking isn't helpful. Something about me believing that is actually holding me back. And I just had to get real. I had to get real with myself and really dissect what are those things, those thoughts, those beliefs, those things that keep coming up that sometimes almost sabotage me from doing the things that I want to do. That's the type of realness that we have to get to a place of. Because for your confidence to grow, your mindset has to change. And that was what I learned. Your mindset has to change. The same for your money. Your money's going to grow the more your mindset changes and your habits change. That is just how it works. But most of us, we don't want to do that bit of the work. So I want us to, 1, get real with ourselves. 2, make a decision. Because actually, that is how we now are able to say, okay, this is a decision time. This is where I decide that something is going to be different. Now, the third thing you definitely want to do is you want to identify the area that you know needs to change or be worked on. And just pick one. Ladies, even if there's nothing else you come off this call from, is actually go away and actually just check yourself. Because we all know something that is that niggling or that weak point in us that we just know, yeah, that's not too great. I don't want to look at it. And it's often the thing that we're avoiding the most that just keeps coming up again and again and again. So identify what area do you want to work on within yourself? Because some people will say to me, Sherna, I just want to be confident. Well, actually, confidence comes with some action. You need to be able to identify what aspect is it that you are trying to work on within yourself. And then once you've identified it, great. Now we break it down into tiny, small, achievable goals. Because for me, the first thing when that Tesco bag incident happened wasn't actually about trying to just declare this and declare that. It was just about me actually being able to own it and say that this is a thought or thinking process that I have that I want to work on. That's the start. And then we get to understanding, well, what do I need to do to replace some of those thinking or those thought patterns? And that's how we break down these things into smaller, achievable goals for ourselves. Now, ladies, sometimes that's our weight. Sometimes that's us deciding to actually create some boundaries with people, because half of us, our struggle is not actually being kind to ourselves, it's actually being able to hold off others overusing us or violating our needs, or it's actually us not having safe and good boundaries. Sometimes the area that we need to work on is our money. And actually, it might be our money management skills that we need to actually identify. Well, I don't like the fact that I always seem to be without money, or I don't like the fact that I always seem to overspend. You know your area, because whatever the area is, if you are able to actually tackle it, this is how you will find that your confidence grows, because you're facing it and then you're doing something about it. Now, thankfully, ladies, the Tesco bag incident, I'm grateful for it now, because it taught me so much. It didn't just give me the experience of, oh my God, it was such an embarrassing thing. No, it was the teaching point I needed to actually understand about me, to understand that I didn't have it all together. I didn't just have this sense of, I know what I'm about. I'm so confident. No, that even me, who thought in that moment I was strong and tough and could manage, I could crumble. I saw my own humanity, that there was things unaddressed from my earlier past that were still able to almost disable me in moments. And that was a hard truth, because we're all human and there is going to be something that will test you. And if it don't test you in this one area, you'll see that it will test you in another area that you might still need to work on or address or do something different. And many of us face the battles in our money. And money is one of those things that those are, we will say the devil, he's after my coins, he's after my this. It's probably you and how you're managing that area of your money. It might be the things you've learned over time and you've just always done it that way. But we have to be able to admit, we have to be able to get real with ourselves. We have to be able to then identify, what are we going to do? And then we start to get to work and set some small, tiny goals. Now, one of the things that I definitely want to highlight is, once you get to a place where you've identified the area, you want to certainly be able to also have someone who can hold you accountable. Because ladies, one thing I know about me is I will definitely give myself a pass. Let's just put it truthful. If no one sees me do it, I might just cheat myself. I'm not meant to eat ice cream, but no one saw that I bought that Haagen-Dazs. I'm just going to nibble a little bit more. And these are the ways that we just easily allow ourselves to slide in these areas that we say we want to work on. And this applies across the board. This is not something that is just about, okay, when I'm building my confidence, this is what I need. An accountability partner or a mentor is someone who can actually hold your hand, hold you accountable, but also be there as a support, as a sounding board, as a guide, even in some ways as a friend that will be able to tell you the truth. Because we all need that to grow. You see, when I first started on this journey, I realized that I hated being vulnerable. And I was like, I don't even know how I went from Tesco bag incident to realizing that one of my concerns or areas was being perceived as vulnerable. I saw it as actual weakness, when in fact, being vulnerable is a strength. It is powerful. But so many of us perceive it as feeling like, my gosh, I'm going to be seen by others as weak. And it took me intentional work to really decide that these are some of the areas I definitely want to work on. I knew money was going to be an area that was going to be certainly connected, but I knew where I needed to start. And for many of us, we all may want some more money. Guys, if you would be on this call, if you're on this call today and you are saying, you know what, I wouldn't mind some extra money, just drop a 1 in the chat box so I know we're all on the same page. And if you're not, you're okay. You don't need £1 extra today. Great. But if you are someone who says, you know what, I wouldn't mind a bit of extra money. I'm all in. I'm all in. I certainly, I'm going to put my hands up, because I knew deep down, I definitely wanted to do something around my finances. I remember being in my 20s at that same point when Tesco bag incident happened. And I remember just feeling like, okay, I've got a decision to make. I've got a moment in time where I need to do some things different. And down the line, few months or years down the line, I went through an incident that not only when that Tesco bag incident almost broke my spirit in one way, I went through an incident with money. And I don't know if there's anyone on this call who's got that one friend who actually is a thief. And it's a painful thing to say, guys, but it's the truth. Because there are friends who are around us and we almost feel like they're like family. And we go through a moment where money comes up and there is an issue in you and their friendship suddenly, and it's tied to money. And I was talking about this with some other ladies, and we all ended up having a similar story of there being a time where we may have borrowed money to a friend and that money hasn't been returned. And it has caused division and upset within the friendship. And I was saying to myself, isn't this ironic that so many people go through a similar painful experience when it comes to money? But for me, guys, that was my experience. I went through a moment in life where I had borrowed more than I could afford to lose, let's say. And I borrowed in faith, okay? And again, this isn't about the person. This isn't even about the money. This is about how everything you go through in life is just a teaching moment. It is something that is almost feels like a mess, but it's about to become your message. And when I went through that experience, I remember really, really struggling with that sense of betrayal, because this was somebody who I trusted. This was somebody who I would have almost given my life for, because I truly valued them as a friend. It wasn't so much about the money, but what happened in that moment was actually when I went through that, it taught me that the next area that I need to look at is my finances. Because what I had learned now was actually my self-esteem was improving. Yes, following that Tesco bag incident, I was doing the work. But what I found is that even when you're doing the work, there are going to be other tests that will actually be testing you about, can you now set appropriate boundaries? Now, what does boundaries, confidence, and money have to do with things? But it has everything to do with it. Because the same way that we need to be boundaried in how we manage our money, the same way we need to be boundaried in how and what and who we give our money to, how and what we invest our money in. And I didn't see that. I truly was still naive to money. I was still kind of like, I'm just working on me. I want to be a better me. And you see how these things all interconnect. They all actually tie in. And this is how my own journey of confidence and coins became one thing. Because what I was going through was almost a rebirthing of understanding myself so that I could understand how to manage my money better. And it has been such a process and journey that now I'm able to mentor women worldwide who have gone through similar or who are just in a place where they want to work on these particular areas of themselves. Because for me in that moment, when I went through that experience, I was now having to learn that I didn't have boundaries that I was able to set with friends, and then not just set them, but maintain those boundaries. I was someone who was willing to please and go above up for others than I would even for myself. So again, it was that ding, ding, ding. Have I not learned this somewhere else? Do I not value myself yet, that I would put myself at risk and go above and beyond and do something for someone else that I wouldn't even do for myself. And it was the second learning point. I had to admit that to myself. I had to accept that actually there's some more work to be done. And this is why I'm sharing this story as part one, so that you really understand where confidence and coins is interrelated, but also how this birthed. All right. And one of the things that I learned is that for us to have success in any area of our lives, we ourselves have to be willing to be really truthful with ourselves. And then we need to actually learn to be truthful with others. So if I don't want to do something, or I see that that doesn't add value or something that's going to help me or push me towards where I'm going, it's okay to say no. It's okay to set a boundary. Because when I was learning those boundaries through going through that experience of having a friend who was a thief, of having a friend who I wasn't able to actually say no to, I learned more about myself. I learned more about my need to be able to not please others, but to also be able to now start to look at how I develop skills around managing my money better. And half the time, ladies, why we are not able to manage our money better is because we're not very boundaried and disciplined with ourselves. We're not able to actually hold ourselves accountable. And again, this is why accountability is key. Because if you are able to get to a place where you now have somebody else who can hold you accountable, or you have a mentor that can work alongside you, you will actually find that you're able to get faster results. And that was something I found the more and more I actually found mentors, found coaches, and simply just started getting real with the areas that I knew I need some skills in this area. I need to build my own confidence up about who I am. And for me, I have faith. So some of that involves scripture. I need to go back to the word of God. Who does God say I am? And that's where many women start, and some may not, but some may get there. And then you can use the affirmations of declaring now who you are each and every day. And I still do that to today, because there are still things that will come to try and knock me to the side. And I'm encouraging each and every one of you, wherever you're at in your own journey, whether it's working on your own confidence because of some of the things that you've already gone through, or whether it's you're in a place where you're saying, you know what, I would like to actually explore my financial circumstances and see what areas I'm falling down on, or what areas need to change. For some of us, it's actually we need to increase our income streams. For me, I remember being in a situation where now that I had borrowed that money and that money didn't return, I had a huge debt. And yes, me, sometimes when I share this story with other women, they're like, what? You look so all together now. You look so, and it's like, yeah, but you don't just birth into this. This is a journey. And I can own my story of being in that situation and being petrified of having this huge debt and not knowing what to do about it. Because in my mind, it didn't feel like it was mine. I had done a good act. I was a good person. I had done the right thing. I had borrowed a friend some money. But in the truth, the mirror, ladies, that debt was in my name. They weren't writing to that person. They were writing to me. And the pain of that kept me bound for a long time, because it was the betrayal, and then it was the shame, and then it was the sense of guilt, and then it was the sense of, oh my God, what now? Where do I begin? How do I ask for help in something that I'm ashamed of? And this is how so many of us ladies, we get muffled, we end up silent, and we end up not doing anything because we don't want to admit where we're at. Ladies, I did not always have it all figured out when it came to coins. I did not always have it figured out when it came to confidence, but I thank God for being very intentional about addressing those areas in my life. And now what I do is I work alongside women and men to help them do the exact same thing. Because I knew in that situation that not only did I need to admit to myself where I was at, I needed to actually make a decision to ask for help or to stay spiraling out of control and let the situation just unravel. I had the decision to actually start exploring what additional streams of income I could actually use and utilize, or I could just stay in my situation and keep hoping, but not taking any action. And this is where it was just a matter of a decision. And that's why today I always say to every single woman, don't stay faking it. Don't stay not admitting to yourself where you're at. Don't stay in that scenario because you don't want others to know just how bad it is. Because the truth of the matter is, there is strength in your vulnerability. That is where your strength lies. Being able to actually say with confidence, this is where I'm at. It ain't fun. It's not pretty, but it's me and it's where I am. And that is the starting point that I realize confidence comes when you can face the truth and then go do something about it. And each and every time you actually do that, you now are almost putting your stripes on your own self. That's how your confidence really grows. Massive amounts of action, but really being able to be real with yourself. Now, ladies, I mean, there is a part 2 tomorrow to this. And if you are somebody who, like me, when I got to the place of making a decision about knowing that my finances certainly needed to change, and knowing that I didn't have all the answers, and knowing that actually my confidence also needed to change, knowing that my sense of self-worth needed to change, all those things, the minute I made a decision, let me tell you what then comes. The obstacles, the people, the things that you think are going to now be on your side to support you, you're going to see that it almost ramps up. The minute you make a decision to do something different, you will see that there will be a whole host of things that almost hinder you from taking those steps forward. And that is what we're going to be talking about tomorrow as part 2. And it's giving you a plan of action and some tools that can help you as you make that journey, whether it's with your confidence, whether it's with your money, that can really assist you along this course. Because one thing I found is that there are people who feel much more comfortable when you stay as you are. There are people who are okay about you being in certain situations. That makes them feel okay. That makes them feel good where they're at. And you'll find that the minute you make that decision to do something different, there will be testings from all different sides. You may find that the situation you're trying to change almost worsens. You know, where the fridge breaks, the car then breaks down, you lose your monthly bus pass and you're thinking, I need to pay that again. All these things just spiral one by one by one. And you think it can't get any worse because I already declared that something was about to change in my finances. And now the finances are worsening. The circumstances have suddenly got worse. But let me tell you what happens when you make a decision. And it's not about blaming the devil or the enemy. But I'm telling you that there is something that shifts within the atmosphere and within you when you get real and you make a decision to do something different. There is a shift. And the test will be more so about, will you actually see it through? That is it. It's like when people say, I'm ready to pay off my debt. Great. They start paying the first card. They're pumped. They're excited. I was the same. I was like, oh my God, I cleared that first card quick. Then you see there's a second, third, and a fourth card, and you're like, no, I'm tired. I want to buy a pair of shoes. I want to take a holiday. This ain't fun anymore. And test after test comes, and it's always about, will you run the race and finish it? Will you do what you say you want to change? And that's why I say to women, if you are saying that something needs to change in your finances, you want to see growth, not just in your confidence, but in your confidence, and through your confidence, your coins will start to grow. It's like, will you do the work? Will you actually do the work that is going to get you the results you're after? Will you actually connect with a mentor or a coach or have an accountability partner that is going to hold you accountable to what you say you're ready to do? So ladies, I want to thank you, each and every one of you who's joined me on tonight's call. This is just the pre-launch. This is part one. I would love if you can come back for part two tomorrow. We have got something amazing planned that is not only talking and looking at the obstacles that will come in your way once you've made that decision to change your finances, your confidence, whatever area it is. But what I want to encourage you to do today is go away and think about 1 to 2 areas that you have said, you know what, this particular thing needs to change, and come back tomorrow, because I am going to be looking at not only the obstacles, but we are going to be given some practical tools and things that you can do that can begin to actually grow not just your confidence, but also your coins. So ladies, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me on tonight's call. It's an honor, it's a privilege as always. I am just so excited that you could all join, and I really do look forward to seeing you all hopefully tomorrow for part two. Thank you again, and God bless. Take care. Bye.